This is a city where humans and monsters coexist. 3 years ago, a portal to another world opened in New York, destroying the city. Humans and monsters then built a new city here, called the City of Miracles. In this magical city, you never know what will happen next. Leo, a boy deeply moved by this unpredictability, first had his camera stolen by a creature named Sonic. While chasing it, he was bombarded by monsters, stepped on by a white-haired madman, and taken to a stronghold of an organization called Libra. After much confusion, they realized they had mistaken him for someone else. As 3 mysterious figures debated what to do with Leo, the king of depravity, Themt, from the 13 kings of the other realm, issued a bizarre challenge to the entire city. He split the body of a demonic god into 2, hiding one half in a randomly appearing portal. The other half of the demon god and the city's humans must find this portal. If the demon god finds it first and reunites, the city will be completely destroyed. Unexpectedly, the portal appeared on Sonic. A powerful demon god instantly sliced through a building. Claus, the leader of Libra, protected Leo with his body and ordered his subordinates to capture Sonic. Zap, quick-tempered, suspected Leo of being an undercover agent. Watching Claus, who had saved him, Leo revealed his past. 6 months ago, he arrived in the City of Miracles with his disabled sister, hoping for good fortune. Indeed, a miracle occurred. The god of the other realm offered them the all-seeing eyes of God, which could see through the world, but at the cost of one losing their sight. Frightened, Leo trembled, but his sister stepped forward to bear the cost. Leo hated himself and vowed to find a way to restore his sister's sight in this city. The city's SWAT team identified several individuals as suspects in the recent unrest and prepared to arrest them. However, the demonic god could reunite at any moment, leaving little time for the Libra organization. They had to act quickly. Claus knew Leo was not a bad person and that his all-seeing eyes of God could be very useful. He invited Leo to join the Libra organization. Then, after asking Leo and Zap to stop the demonic god, he confronted the armored SWAT team alone, despite his injuries. The white-haired man gripped the lighter tightly in his hand. In the next second, the blood knife appeared in his grasp. Just moments before, Leo and Zap had been tasked by their boss Claus to pursue Sonic, who was possessed by half of the demonic god. However, they were ambushed en route, and the entire street turned into rubble. The other half of the demonic god appeared, ready to kill the survivors at the scene. Fortunately, Zap arrived just in time to save Leo. Zap prepared to face the demonic god alone, leaving Leo with the task of shooting Sonic. Zap charged at the demonic god and cut it in half with a single strike. But the powerful demon was not easily defeated. Its blood reformed, and it restored itself. Anticipating this, Zap turned his blood knife into threads, entangling the demon and flinging it like a sandbag. Taking advantage of the demon's slow recovery, Zap casually lit his lighter, resulting in a towering blaze. Seizing the opportunity, Leo rushed towards Sonic, but found himself unable to harm the little creature. The previous appearance of the demonic god had destroyed everything, yet the monkey remained unscathed, suggesting some overlooked detail. It was time to use his own power. It turned out all secrets were held within a flea on Sonic. By killing the flea, the crisis was averted. The game failed, and the King of Depravity furiously raged. After this battle, Leo officially joined the Libra organization. Claus, the leader of the Libra organization, excels at brain grid blood battle style and is the strongest member. The second in command, Steven, specializes in Esmeralda blood freeze and is the strategic mind of the group. Zap is skilled in Big Dipper blood battle style and is a complete joker. The werewolf beauty, Chain, handles the organization's intelligence and tracking. There is also a kind but reticent butler. These odd characters made Leo feel like he had entered a den of thieves, but in reality, Libra plays a crucial role in protecting the city. Their thrilling and action-packed adventure officially starts now. The ordinary truck in front of the boy appeared as a completely different scene in his eyes. The demon sensed Leo's eye of God and discovered him. Leo, with Zap in tow, tried to escape. Clearly not intending to let Leo go easily, the demon severely injured Zap with a single strike. Unable to see through the demon's illusion, Zap could only watch as Leo was captured. Chain, receiving a call for help from Zap, tracked Leo's location. However, the demon's illusion was so strong that even with wolf-like vision, she quickly lost the target. Leo was taken inside the phantom truck, which was filled with kidnapped humans. Didn't they know that according to the human-demon peace treaty, consuming humans is illegal? The demon told Leo that the illegal smuggling of human flesh was highly profitable. The monster that cast illusions on the phantom truck appeared, discovering the secret of Leo's eye of God and planned to dissect him back in another realm. Such valuable eyes were worth as much as several trucks of smuggled humans. The phantom truck headed deeper into the other realm, and Leo was helpless. After all, aside from having the eye of God, he had no other skills. Zap, severely injured in the hospital and seemingly comatose, was actually concentrating on gathering blood threads. Before Leo was captured, Zap connected one end of the thread to him. Using blood bags from the hospital to replenish blood, he kept himself connected to Leo, miles away. By this time, all members of Libra were ready. As soon as the phantom truck stopped, they would immediately rush to the scene. Inside the truck, Leo was racing against time, hoping to develop a new skill for his Eye of God by observing Sonic. However, the demons noticed his actions. Unknown to them, Leo had already mastered his first ability, Plain Eyeballs, which controlled all eyes on the truck, causing dizziness. Thousands of miles away, Zap instantly sensed it was time. He ignited the blood thread with his lighter, sending a streak of fire towards the phantom truck. Chain followed closely. The butler, using the GPS on Chain, sped towards the truck's location, arriving almost simultaneously with the fire line. A spider monster lunged, but Steven kicked it away. As a demon was about to draw his sword, Claus descended from above, unleashing blood battle style. Pattern 111. Kreuzvernichter Lanze, a massive blade of judgment that turned the demon and the phantom truck to ashes. Everyone had forgotten Leo was still inside the truck. Fortunately, Leo was unharmed and quickly recovered. Wandering in the hospital, he walked into a graveyard where he met a strange girl.
誰なんだい?
私ホワイト
If you woke up to find a malevolent god floating outside your window, how would you feel? The boy was shocked, but his landlord saw it as a stroke of great fortune. In a world where humans and monsters coexist, a deity like this could turn a slum into a famous landmark overnight. As a result, Leo was evicted and had to sleep on a couch at Libra headquarters. Zap, in a foul mood, sat directly on Leo's head. It turned out Zap had been bitten by a madman on the street. Despite being slashed by Zap, the attacker retained his combat ability. Claus suspected this was due to angel armor, a new drug on the market that granted extraordinary healing powers, but caused loss of self-awareness. To track down more information on angel armor, Claus decided to consult a friend from another realm and invited his good friend, gun god KK, to join him. The other realm was full of oddities, with buildings defying physical laws and floating in space, and cars traveling on sky-high roads. They quickly reached their destination. Here, Claus met Udir, the world's top chess player. Since their goals aligned, they decided to proceed together. Deep in the room, the group met Don Arlalel, who had been reigning in another realm for 1,000 years. He knew everything, and could fulfill almost any wish, provided one could either beat him or remain undefeated in a demonic chess duel within a set time. As the world's top chess player, Udir was confident. He hoped to win nuclear weapon manufacturing capabilities for his country through this game. Don Arlalel thought this request was manageable, requiring only that one withstand him for 9 hours. Claus, however, felt Udir underestimated the opponent. Demonic chess was 1,000 times harder than regular chess, and its difficulty increased exponentially over time. Indeed, after just 1 hour, Udir was overwhelmed. Don Arlalel's brain capacity was 1,000 times that of a normal human, making him an unmatched opponent. According to the rules, Udir's life now belonged to Don Arlalel. However, as Don Arlalel was about to claim his life, Claus stepped forward and offered to play in exchange for Udir's life. Don Arlalel agreed, but set the game duration to 99 hours. KK waited anxiously outside. Don Arlalel had studied war chess for 1,200 years. Claus was literally risking his life in this game. As time passed, the difficulty of the chess game increased tenfold. Yet, Claus, with remarkable stamina and resilience, kept up. By the 90th hour, Claus reached his limit. Don Arlalel felt it was not worth it for someone as worthless as Udir, but Claus did not give up. Claus lasted the full 99 hours, barely alive. Don Arlalel spared Udir and also revealed the creator of angel armor. However, aside from KK, no one else knew how Claus got the information. This is the luckiest man I've ever seen. Right after getting off the plane, it exploded. A runaway truck came hurtling towards him but was stopped by a monster. The man, Abrams, was unharmed, but those around him were not so lucky. Abrams, one of the world's leading vampire counteraction experts, is deeply hated by vampires. They cursed him, but his incredible luck allows him to turn misfortune into fortune. However, those not so lucky who are around him suffer the consequences of the curse. This is why everyone is afraid of Abrams. Abrams came to the Libra headquarters because of Leo, who possesses the all-seeing eyes of God. While on the subway, Leo saw a mysterious person with red blood wings. Another boy on the train told Leo that besides humans and monsters, there is a minority group of powerful vampires invisible to the naked eye, each capable of taking on thousands. Leo shared his subway experience with Claus, causing a state of high alert at Libra. Everyone knows how terrifying vampires can be. Facing such a challenging situation, Claus had no choice but to call Abrams. Unexpectedly, Abrams brought with him a hand belonging to one of the 13 vampire elders. Libra had once fought this elder, who destroyed a battleship and killed 300 soldiers with a single move. The vampire elders are nearly indestructible, with hardly any weaknesses. After sacrificing 50 high-ranking members, Libra barely managed to sever this hand. Years later, the hand still possesses vigorous vitality. Vampire experts speculate that the DNA of this hand holds the names and weaknesses of all vampires, potentially the only hope for their eradication. If anyone can uncover this secret, it would be Leo with his all-seeing eyes of God. Leo activated the eyes of God, revealing the hidden directory. But immediately after, sparks flew from his eyes, and he collapsed unconscious. To investigate vampires, the group took the subway to the eternal void at the city center, shrouded in thick fog. No one knew what lay deep within the fog. Based on observations of the Elder's DNA, Abrams believed Leo had acquired the capability to detect vampires. He planned to have Leo use the all-seeing eyes of God to sense the number and location of vampire elders deep in the fog. When the eyes of God were activated, countless blood wings flickered, casting a red glow deep into the fog. The vampires inside were innumerable. The powerful force radiated onto the all-seeing eyes of God, instantly causing severe harm to Leo. This woman is the immortal vampire elder Gerika. All the human police who came to subdue her were killed and turned into her minions. Upon receiving the police report, Libra urgently dispatched forces to assist. KK and Steven warned the surrounding police to keep their distance, as a being like a vampire elder is beyond human handling. The subway station was filled with bodies, and both KK and Steven were on high alert. As elite members of Libra, they easily handled a few obstructing puppets and prepared for a swift and decisive battle, using their full strength. Chain livestreamed the scene to Claus. With the situation critical, Zap urged the train to speed up. KK and Steven confronted Gerika, dramatically changing the course of the battle. Steven's attacks couldn't touch Gerika, and while KK's bullets inflicted damage, Gerika recovered instantly. Gerika then counterattacked, defeating KK and Steven. She knew they were human-made weapons with genetic enhancements, but clearly, human technology was still imperfect. Their abilities could not inflict permanent damage, and an elder vampire could quickly heal. Despite this, Steven remained confident. He believed that with continued human effort, a way to completely kill vampires would eventually be found. But for now, humanity was not helpless. Claus is humanity's strongest weapon against vampires. Gerika was shocked to discover that her full name and weaknesses were known. In fact, these details were observed by Leo using the eyes of God through his smartphone screen. This was the first time humans successfully sealed an elder vampire. Although victorious, Leo still felt dejected because he saw countless powerful vampires hiding deep within the fog. However, His spirits lifted when he saw the fighters of Libra. They seemed to be on fire. Indeed, for them, powerful enemies are not to be feared. True cowardice lies in giving up without trying. Leo and White have recently been getting along very well. He really likes this interesting girl. However, for some reason, White was uncharacteristically aloof today and ignored him. What Leo doesn't know is that the boy with glasses he met on the subway actually knows White. The boy is very interested in Leo's all-seeing eyes of God and has a deep connection with another powerful entity.
お前らのお友達、絶望だよ。
These two unlucky guys were nearly hit by Optimus Prime while riding a motorcycle. They thought they were safe, but the next second, a truck was effortlessly lifted by an unidentified object. Both Zap and Leo were terrified. At that moment, Steven learned about the situation from the TV. Recognizing the truck, Claus and Steven immediately took action and headed to the Supernormal Human Research Center. In the prison, a mysterious man was shackled, clearly a dangerous entity. This man, known as Hummer, was an old acquaintance of theirs. Abrams needed Hummer's help and released him. However, as soon as the shackles were removed, Hummer's blood sprayed out and grabbed Abrams. This blood monster, named Brody, was stopped by Hummer in time. Then, the three of them went to rescue Zap and Leo. Hummer was brought along because the monster truck's owner was also the creator of Hummer and the monster inside him. Meanwhile, Zap and Leo were in grave danger, and Chain was watching from a streetlight. The ground cracked, sending Leo flying and hanging from the monster truck. It was then that he met the truck's owner, Queen of Monomania Allegora, one of the 13 rulers of another realm. Leo learned from Allegora that her boyfriend was a monster named Brody. Although she liked his personality, she found him ugly. So, Allegora minced Brody into a paste and then drained the blood from Hummer to fill him with Brody, creating her idea of the perfect boyfriend. Leo wanted nothing more than to escape from this crazy woman. Fortunately, Hummer and Claus arrived just then. Allegora greeted them cheerfully, while Hummer was filled with nightmarish memories. Brody burst out of Hummer, enveloping him and transforming into a red giant. He then punched the monster truck. The earth-shattering noise caught the attention of the King of Despair, who was dining with the King of Depravity, making him worry about acquiring the Eye of God. At this moment, Leo was truly miserable. Allegora was forcing him to bravely declare his love to White, something difficult for a straightforward man like him. He could only hope for Claus to rescue him quickly. Meanwhile, Libra's members found Hummer, who had been thrown away, and the strongest team assembled. The plan to intercept the monster truck officially began. After a brief rest, the monster truck restarted. As a pure love warrior, Allegora would not stop until she captured Hummer. Steven contacted Leo, and Libra had assembled fully to confront the Queen of Monomania. The first step of the plan was to use Leo's Eyes of God to control the monster truck's vision and lead it into Libra's ambush. The plane eyeballs were activated, controlling the truck's vision and successfully redirecting it. KK, positioned 2 kilometers away, launched an AOE skill, eliminating the obstructive steel bugs. Next, it was Steven's task to freeze the ground, immobilizing the truck's wheels and causing it to lose control completely. However, this was still not secure enough. Claus sent the monster truck skyward, preparing it for Hummer's strongest strike. Hummer and Brody had been waiting for this day for a long time. Although they had independent consciousnesses, their lives fused tightly when they merged. Over time, they became friends, but their hatred for the Queen of Monomania never diminished. Then, Hummer asked Brody to remove all his armor and concentrate all his blood into one fist. The powerful force distorted the surrounding space. The monster truck was punched into the sky, and its disintegrating pieces fell, causing casualties to hundreds of thousands in the city. The turmoil ended dramatically, and fortunately, Leo was not mistakenly injured. Witnessing everything unfold, the secret meeting between the King of Despair and the King of Depravity also came to an end. The King of Despair was confident about the future plans, and the King of Depravity was looking forward to them. Leo was lucky to have only minor injuries. His good mood was shattered the moment he saw White talking with the doctor. Thinking of the day's events with the Queen of Monomania, Leo found the courage from somewhere. He grabbed a confused White and rushed to the cinema. It was their first date, and the atmosphere was a bit awkward. Although a comedy was playing on the screen, White shed tears. Leo instantly felt he had ruined everything.
情けないよね。
そんなことないわ。レオはいいやつよ。
After what was supposed to be a wonderful date, when Leo found White again, he saw the mysterious boy he had encountered on the subway before. This boy turned out to be White's brother.
ブラックって呼んで。
A coffee was about to spill on the boy, but the next second, it froze mid-air, revealing Black's ability. Leo was completely surprised to discover that Black had supernatural powers, though not particularly strong ones. First, Leo learned of White's heart condition from Black, then discovered Black's superpowers. Knowing so many secrets all at once was overwhelming for Leo. Back at Libra, the peaceful atmosphere was a bit discomforting for Leo, as he was used to a different kind of welcome. Although it was strange, Leo admired Zap's relentless spirit in challenging the boss. Then Leo received a distress call from Zap, who was pleading for Klaus's help. When they reached the location where Zap was supposedly kidnapped, they entered deep into the building only to find a bustling underground fighting arena instead of Zap. Unbeknownst to Klaus, he had fallen into a trap set by Zap and the arena's boss to clear a gambling debt. They staged the entire scenario, with Klaus cluelessly stepping into the ring. In the ring, no weapons were allowed. Fighters had to engage in hand-to-hand combat, a true boxer's paradise. Soon, Klaus faced his first opponent, the undefeated champion of the arena. The match began, and before Klaus could throw a punch, his opponent was instantly defeated by another fighter. The striker was the top boxer of Eden, Kato, who had already won 20 consecutive matches. The boss arranged a medical team ready to save Klaus's life, while Zap was fully confident. As the fight started, Klaus launched a flurry of punches, overpowering Kato without giving him a chance to retaliate. A decisive move knocked Kato out completely, leaving him unable to fight. The crowd went wild, and even the boss hadn't seen such ferocity in a long time. Klaus intended to leave and search for Zap, but seeing the audience's expectations, he softened and decided to continue fighting. In this era, despite having supernatural powers and coming from different worlds and races, there seems to be a timeless desire in men's hearts to fight one-on-one, barehanded. It's not about the bloodshed, but rather a kind of illness embedded in men's genes. Klaus became more exhilarated with each fight, even enjoying himself, and soon knocked out the season's champion. The audience was thrilled. Suddenly, seeing a strong competitor, the boss of the underground arena couldn't resist stepping into the ring himself. Admiring Klaus's strength and following the underground rules, the boss's participation meant the winner of this fight would gain ownership of the underground arena. The boss charged at Klaus, who instantly blocked the strike. The two fighters, truly the strongest, exchanged blows without gaining the upper hand, their powerful punches sparking intense heat. Klaus fought like a mighty Spartan soldier, using his left hand for defense and his right hand ready to strike, relying on iron fists and keen eyes without any fancy techniques. As time passed, the boss gradually began to overpower Klaus. However, Klaus's defensive left hand suddenly launched an attack, landing a punch on the boss. Unexpectedly, this punch burst the boss's head open, revealing a small creature inside. To Klaus's astonishment, the creature claimed it had not killed the boss, but was merely inhabiting the already dead body to enjoy the thrill of fighting. Leo activated the Eye of God and discovered the creature was a vampire. The vampire, with its blood wings unfurled, easily knocked Klaus away. Fortunately, not all vampires are murderous, and the trio safely left Eden. Klaus, ever straightforward, was still unaware that Zap had tricked him. Leo had already learned of Zap's shameful actions from the fighters and openly criticized him as shameless. On the way home, Leo encountered Black again. Black took Leo to a museum and shared the origin of the city. 3 years ago, a bizarre spatial collapse occurred, blending the human world with other realms. This nearly destroyed all of New York City. However, unbeknownst to many, several powerful sorcerers united to create a massive barrier that prevented the collapse from spreading, potentially saving the planet. Leo admired Black's extensive knowledge of the collapse, though Black wished he could exchange that knowledge for the lives and health of his parents and sister. Leo's interest in the collapse was piqued by Black, leading him to study it further. After 2 days, Leo saw Zap, who looked as if he were pregnant due to overeating. It turned out Zap had taken a liking to a KFC waitress and ate 8 family buckets a day just to get her phone number. This waitress happened to be a friend of Chain, who was then asked to deal with Zap's bizarre behavior. Meanwhile, Steven received news that the bloodline gate had opened in India. 2 vampires, each with elder-level strength, were rushing towards the city. Their battle was so fierce that it set the skies ablaze and nearly leveled entire blocks. KK, on a sniping mission, found a little girl in the street. Fortunately, Steven arrived just in time to use his blood powers to freeze the flames. Together, they continued towards the battlefield. In front of them, 2 figures were confronting each other, confusing KK and Steven. Fortunately, their experience allowed them to quickly identify which one was the vampire, and they promptly used their powers to deal with it. Unexpectedly, the other figure chased after Zap, causing KK and Steven to think they had attacked the wrong person. However, the previously sealed vampire broke free from its bindings at that moment. Just then, the mysterious creature reappeared with Zap, unleashing countless blood threads that restricted the vampire's movement. The blood threads then ignited, engulfing the vampire in flames, and a tornado formed around the fire, intensifying it. Amid the vampire's screams, it transformed into an egg covered with eyes, known as the true womb egg, a self-protective form used by vampires at the brink of death. Controlling Zap, the mysterious creature introduced itself to KK and Steven as the creator of the Big Dipper blood technique and Zap's master, known as the Blood Battle God. His age and the number of vampires he had killed were unknown. Blood Battle God planned to take Zap with him. Although the rest of Libra were juniors in his presence, they did not want their friend Zap to leave. Seeing this, Blood Battle God offered them a trial. This is a true womb egg sealing an elder-level vampire. However, it's not a creature that ordinary mechs can approach. To completely destroy it, you must destroy all 6 eyes at the same time. Completing the trial, set by Blood Battle God, seems nearly impossible. Blood Battle God has locked Zap and the true womb egg together, which everyone thinks is a bit excessive. However, Zap is unusually calm and ready to challenge himself. Reflecting on his miserable experiences since becoming an apprentice, each situation more extreme than the last, Zap is now on the brink of collapse, convinced he's about to die. At that moment, Zap's secret crush calls Chain, wanting to ask Zap out. Chain regretfully informs her that Zap is about to die. Hearing this, Zap explodes with emotion. Even Blood Battle God has to admit that Zap's power in that moment is 1,000th of his own. Zap rushes to grab the phone from Chain, eager for the date, only to hear a dial tone. Feeling utterly deceived by Chain, Zap is left in despair. Meanwhile, everyone else is at a loss with the true womb egg. Even the all-seeing eyes of God can't see through it, making it impossible to fully seal it. Blood Battle God explains that the vampire is invisible because it only has half its body. To fully seal it, he has already arranged for the other half to be brought here. The passenger plane, hijacked by a mysterious creature and covered in blood-red patterns on the nose, was directed toward the city by Blood Battle God as the other half of the vampire. Members of Libra were poised and ready, while city dwellers, unalarmed, gathered by the river to watch. Among them were 3 of the 13 kings of the other world. The King of Depravity was dissatisfied with the lack of progress in the King of Despair's plan for a second great collapse, unaware that everything was already in place, waiting only for White's approval to complete the final step. As the plane approached, a massive tentacle shattered it, leaving only the nose continuing its trajectory. At that moment, Hummer transformed into armored mode and rushed out to embrace the nose, slowing its impact. Leo activated the Eye of God to ascertain the vampire's full name, but Claus, feeling it was too slow, jumped down with Leo and Zap to the crash site. As expected of Libra's top combatant, Claus easily neutralized the elder vampire's lethal attacks. However, the vampire's strength was not to be underestimated. Within seconds, it regenerated its upper body from a mass of flesh. If it were to merge with its lower half, its destructive power would be unimaginable. Leo activated the Eyes of God. Besides the vampire's powerful force field, there was another person inside the plane. With no time to identify him, Leo quickly completed the Elder's name. The battle to annihilate the vampire officially began. Hummer immediately transported Leo to a safe location. In a daze, Leo saw a massive red light covering the entire city as if some seal had broken. Meanwhile, far away in a hospital, White collapsed in pain, seemingly suffering a great trauma. On the vampire battlefield, amid several flashes of sword light, Zap met his legendary junior for the first time. Unexpectedly, the heir to the Big Dipper blood battle style, the Wind God, turned out to be a half-fish man. The fusion of the Wind God and Fire God in the Big Dipper blood battle style is incredibly powerful. Although the Elder-level vampire only has half its body, it can still easily destroy all of New York City. Summoned by it, the other half of the body rushes towards the main body. Once united, it aims to completely annihilate the Libra members before it. The situation is critical, and Zed immediately enters combat mode, releasing countless blood threads in the air towards the vampire. Blood Battle God is supposed to ignite these blood threads to severely damage the vampire before it can fully merge. However, Blood Battle God shows no intention of intervening, hinting that Zap and his junior are expected to join forces. Indeed, the Big Dipper blood battle style proves invincible when combining wind and fire. Even a fully formed Elder-level vampire only ends up on the receiving end of blows. With its heart exposed, the task is left to Claus. Together, the members of Libra reseal this powerful vampire, averting a citywide disaster. Blood Battle God is very pleased with the strength of the Libra members, feeling confident enough to leave Zed to travel the world. Blood Battle God's departure leaves everyone else baffled, and Zed faints on the spot. However, Blood Battle God is not as unreliable as it seems. He leaves Zed because he knows Libra needs help. A disaster is brewing in the hands of the King of Despair. The Queen of Monomania, Aligura, has successfully created an Eye of God extractor. Everything is ready. Now it all depends on White. Legends say that when a person is close to starving, they might encounter the god of food from the infinite universe. Leo now truly regrets asking Zap and Zed to join him for dinner. The brothers, always competing, choose bizarre places to eat. A restaurant that serves vomit as food, oyster soup that devours its diners, a sushi bar run by cockroaches, a steakhouse that cuts meat on site, and greasy elf soup. The places these two jerks take Leo are utterly ridiculous. Indeed, Leo becomes a casualty of their rivalry. At the brink, Leo feels the wrath of the god of food, warning that if he does not eat properly, doom will surely follow. Fortunately, Zap and Zed finally compromise, and it seemed the three could enjoy a meal together. However, the restaurant owner's mistress arrives to physically attack his wife, ruining a lavish meal with bloodshed. At the next respectable restaurant, the formidable owner fights off local gangsters and serves soup made from an arm to the customers. Finally, Leo snaps. The two drag him to a familiar fast food restaurant and order a meal. At this moment, Leo is tearful, never expecting that a massive suit of armor would drop from the sky. Zed quickly saves Leo and a waiter, finding himself in danger. Luckily, Zap intervenes to rescue Zed. Over the past 2 days, Claus has been secretly cooperating with the police to investigate the mysterious disappearance of 1,000 sets of decommissioned armor. The final showdown took place outside a restaurant. After a day of turmoil, the group finally managed to have a meal, but Zap ended up in the hospital with a stomach ailment. Here, Leo encounters White again, who is pleased that Leo has made new friends. As the three chat, Libra, under Abram's leadership, meets with the powerful organization of sorcerers dedicated to preventing a major collapse. The Sorcerers Association members all possess formidable abilities. The leader of the New York branch, known as Elder, has inscrutable power. Elder approached Abrams because a previous battle between Libra and a vampire Elder had damaged the barrier stabilizing the major collapse. This issue was actually planted 3 years ago, and now, as the barrier nears its breaking point, the sorcerer responsible for its repair has died. However, his children survived, and Elder suspects they are key to fixing the barrier. He hopes Libra will help investigate and protect them. Meanwhile, after sending Zed off, White and Leo head to the hospital's chapel to pray. Faced with the kind-hearted Leo, White struggles to act until the King of Despair appears, prompting White to finally make a decision.
あなたのその目、私にちょうだい。
This boy is a born ability user whose mere crying poses a catastrophic threat. Despite such power, he is still bullied at school. Every time he sees his timid brother, White gets very angry. Their parents are powerful sorcerers in the Sorcerers Association, where abilities are passed down through bloodlines. However, there was a twist with White. His brother inherited double the abilities, while his sister was just a normal person with a heart condition. To White, his brother Black hiding his superpowers seemed like a waste. This belief was completely changed one day when school bullies stole White's camera. Seeing this, the timid Black didn't hesitate and confronted the bullies to demand the camera back. The bullies threw the camera off a bridge and Black jumped after it, risking his life. Fortunately, Black was unharmed, but White understood his brother's love. Facing his crying sister, Black revealed why he hid his powers. As a child, he accidentally hurt his sister with his abilities. However, White didn't blame him. Black felt he wasn't as strong-hearted as his sister and feared misusing his powers. He resolved not to use his powers until he became stronger than his sister. This broke the barrier between them, making them incredibly close. This harmony lasted until the major collapse 3 years ago, which killed their parents within a barrier. A mysterious orb tried to take over White's body. Black stepped forward, offering himself in exchange for his sister's life. As the orb merged with him, Black became the human form of the King of Despair. As the extractor attached to Leo's eyes, he collapsed instantly. Amid White's cries and the King of Despair's whistling, Leo was slowly dragged into the abyss, bringing the King of Despair's plan closer to fruition. Meanwhile, the city's people remained oblivious, immersed in the festive atmosphere. With Leo's Eye of God, the King of Despair could finally see through the magical formation covering the city, which had been set up by the Sorcerers Association to stop the major collapse 3 years ago. Now, the King of Despair was about to find and destroy the formation's weak point, restarting the major collapse to erase the human world completely. As the seal loosened, White clutched her heart and collapsed in pain. Finally, the King of Despair found the weak point of the seal. It was White.
心臓代わりの結界が今のあいつを生かしてる。
This girl in a coma may never know that it was her brother who ended everything for her with the cold muzzle of a gun. As the barrier replacing White's heart shattered, a second major collapse began, starting in New York City. The Sorcerers Association's elite rushed to stabilize the core of the barrier. However, due to the missing key formation, the situation looked grim. To prevent irreparable damage, Libra was officially tasked with assisting in the search for the lost core of the formation. The elders identified White as key to solving the problem, prompting Libra to deploy all members. White's origins are secret, and only Leo's Eye of God can locate her. Finding Leo is now crucial. At this moment, in front of the coma-stricken Leo, the King of Depravity from the otherworldly 13 Kings appeared. To him, world destruction is dull. A world of humans and monsters is far more interesting. Thus, to make the plot more intriguing, Leo was awakened and released. Although still visually impaired, Leo walked towards the ground, driven by his determination. The ground was in chaos. The King of Despair was using Black's innate powerful abilities to turn everything to ruins, with buildings flying everywhere. The Sorcerers Association sensed the source of the power. It was Black. Investigators urgently notified Claus that Black was using his powers at the cost of his life. If not stopped soon, the barrier would completely collapse, and Black would also perish. On the other side, to amplify the apocalyptic atmosphere, the King of Depravity summoned countless ghouls. Unaware of the situation above ground, Leo persevered forward. As his glasses fell off, his vision gradually returned. He thought of White and everyone at Libra. Eventually, light appeared before him, not of hope, but a city in ruins. Overwhelmed with emotions, Leo realized something had befallen White. Suddenly, Sonic appeared with a video of White asking for Leo's help. Something meant for Claus but brought to Leo instead. None of that mattered now. After holding back for so long, it was time for Leo to save the world. He sprinted with all his might, facing hordes of ghouls on his path. At this critical moment, the man of luck arrived, bringing a meteor shower with him. Lucky man Abrams emerged from the flames, informing Leo that white was the secret to the barrier. Leo had already guessed this much. Now, all that was left was to find the King of Despair and end everything. Leo continued forward, undeterred. Just then, the armored Hummer arrived, knowing Leo was headed for the barrier. Without a second thought, it unleashed its full power. Leo was thrown high into the air, but thankfully, Chain caught him just before he could crash into a building. A line of blood pulled Leo back as Zed helped him land safely. However, Leo kept pushing forward blindly. Such reckless charging was not feasible, and Zed pulled him back, calling it foolishness. How could one person rush into the perilous core of the barrier alone? But Leo was resolute. Zed was angry. While Leo's courage was commendable, rashness could lead to a needless loss of life. As a member of Libra, Leo must remember that he is never fighting alone. He has his teammates by his side. In the broken church, the King of Despair quietly awaited the final moment. On the mottled steps, a man with red hair slowly walked in. The newcomer was none other than Claus von Reinherz, the pinnacle of Libra's strength. Claus would not back down. He pressured the King of Despair to release Black's consciousness. The King of Despair hurled a meteor, which Claus easily blocked. Facing the King of Despair's top-tier control of supernatural abilities, Claus overpowered him with brute strength, breaking free from petrification to capture him. Even when confronting the King of Despair, Claus remained kind, preferring to sacrifice himself to protect the boy before him. The King of Despair could not understand why humans were so foolish, always taking on unnecessary responsibilities unrelated to themselves. Perhaps only destruction could enlighten them. This was the ultimate showdown between humanity's strongest, Claus, and the King of Despair. Claus, the pinnacle of Libra's strength, held his own against the King of Despair, one of the 13 alien kings. The King of Despair wielded his powerful psychokinesis to control the debris of surrounding buildings, assaulting Claus. However, Klaus's brain grid blood battle style was equally formidable. Ultimately, the King of Despair proved superior. As the sky filled with light and debris, Claus lay defeated in a pool of blood when the dust settled. Meanwhile, Leo raced against time. The path ahead was perilous for an ordinary boy. Unsure if he could survive, Leo fell and rose repeatedly, each time drawing strength from the power given by his friends at Libra. This time, KK and Steven, the ice and lightning duo, were with him. Zap's indiscriminate attacks were no less potent than Abrams. Leo was furious, possibly at his most powerful this season. The recent battle caused one of the eyes of God to shatter, making Leo extremely agitated. However, Zap felt that a real man just gets on with it. The King of Despair bid Claus a final farewell. He felt that Black within him, like Claus, was pitiful for always sacrificing himself for others. There were too many such people, and each one deserved death. It was time to say goodbye to Claus. With Leo's arrival, sunlight began to dispel the city's gloom. Perhaps this boy was not strong, but he had a powerful heart, as brave as Klaus's. Maybe he could create a miracle. This was Leo's shining moment with the eyes of God. Through them, Leo saw Black's presence, still fighting tenaciously. At the same meeting place, now in ruins, both individuals remained as they were at the beginning. Now, only White could defeat the King of Despair and save Black. Leo charged towards the King of Despair, activating the eyes of God. Before the King of Despair could react, he saw White approaching. The King of Despair's blood-red eyes finally showed a hint of clarity. Black was back. He wanted to keep White, but his energy was nearly depleted. White felt blessed to have had an extra 3 years. It was time to say goodbye. Black used the last of his strength, sealing White with a sorrowful heart, repairing the entire city. Golden roots spread across the new New York City, centered around the siblings, quickly restoring everything to its original state. Or perhaps not for Leo, who had lost his white. Amidst the ruins, only he and Claus remained, two equally determined heroes. Claus felt Leo had grown. However, facing this man who was like a mentor and father, Leo finally lost control of his emotions and burst into tears. All this was seen by Black in the distance, wondering if White in heaven had seen her brave knight. How does it feel to have a monster on your head that could eat you at any moment? Just now, a group of humans with jars on their heads fell from the sky, including the unlucky Leo. Fortunately, Zap saved him in time. Zap found the jar on Leo's head amusing. The little guy inside was quite cute. The others were lucky too. They survived the fall, but the little guy inside the jar escaped. Unsurprisingly, this was the work of the King of Depravity, who loves causing trouble. Out of boredom, he created thousands of devouring beasts. These beasts are extremely ferocious and can only live for 6 hours, but they can reproduce infinitely during that time. The sheer number of beasts soon overwhelmed Zap and Leo. Luckily, the big shots from the Libra organization arrived in full force. It was time to show their true skills. Zap frantically fixed the leaks in the jars, while Claus mocked their repetitive skill names. Then, Chain brought bad news. Several giant devouring beasts were charging their way. True to the Libra's reputation, the giant beasts were instantly penetrated. The minions were left speechless by the shock. The remaining devouring beasts were terrified. Regardless, the storm had passed. This is New York, a city of chaos and wonders. You might be bombed by monsters on your way to work, abducted by UFOs, or even crushed by a giant monster while watching a movie. However, for Leo, who is used to all this, these problems are less troubling than his empty wallet. But everything is worth it if he gets the new game, Blood Blockade Battlefront. He thought he could relax for a while until Zap called. Leo opened the window, and there was Zap, riding a motorcycle with Zed, tossing a box for Leo to deliver to the city council. When Leo opened the box, he was shocked to find the head of the current president inside. The head of the president was actually stolen. Claus is certain this was the work of Dürer, the headless duke from another realm, whose biggest hobby is collecting the heads of celebrities. Now, he has taken the president's head, risking a war between humans and otherworldly beings. With this, the task of maintaining world peace falls on Libra. Meanwhile, the president asked Leo to contact the White House, but agents arrived at Leo's doorstep, and his apartment was engulfed in flames. Contact with Leo was lost, and Zap, thinking his delivery had killed Leo, killed a gang leader in a fit of rage. Chaos ensued in the city as news of the president's missing head spread in the black market, with various forces wanting to seize this head worth hundreds of millions. However, no body was found in Leo's apartment. The president had anticipated danger and had Leo help him escape beforehand. The two were pursued by the city's underworld. Leo was spotted and fled, but Chain arrived just in time to easily dispatch the monster. Leo had just met with Libra when he was sniped at, and had to continue his escape with another. But before they could get far, a purple monster appeared. At that moment, KK arrived on an armed motorcycle. The motorcycle transformed into combat mode, and after a series of explosions, the monster was reduced to ashes. This is the largest gang in New York, the Grim Reapers. They surrounded Leo just to snatch the president's head he was holding. Unfortunately for them, greater numbers don't always mean greater strength. Patrick and Naka, driving an armed jeep, easily scattered the disorganized mob. Throughout these dangers, Leo's friends helped him turn peril into safety, leaving even the president to marvel at Leo's popularity. The president, having not had friends in high positions for a long time, only faced endless troubles both internally and externally. As they spoke, the city hall appeared before them. Suddenly, Ham rushed out from the left as tanks hidden around them opened fire on Ham and Leo. After a burst of flames, Ham remarked on his timely arrival. But where was Leo? Ham had thrown Leo dozens of miles away. Looking up, Leo was so shocked that even the Eye of God was activated. Back to square one, Leo wanted to give up, but the president, angry, insisted on keeping faith as long as there was a sliver of chance. Thus, Leo charged towards the city hall under tank fire, activated the Eye of God, and controlled the vision of all enemies, successfully delivering the president to the city hall. However, Leo was stunned by the scene before him. Klaus and Steven subdued by a mysterious monster and the secretary pointing a gun at Leo. It turned out the secretary and the headless Duke Durer had conspired to steal the president's head and instigate a war. What shocked Leo wasn't the secretary's betrayal, but that Klaus and Steven had not resisted. Thus, the storm passed, and the president resumed his role, continuing to strive for peace between the two worlds. Leo couldn't understand why, with such powerful leaders, he, the least capable, was sent to deliver packages. All he could do was bitterly smile. This is a hospital from another world that vanished 3 years ago. On the helipad, nurses in biohazard suits awaited the injured. The situation was so bizarre that pilots dared not land, but time waits for no one. Zap was nearly at death's door, so they had no choice but to land forcefully. The hospital's eeriness is beyond words. The doctor who came to assist Leo turned out to be just a kid, completely baffling Leo. He quickly called for his superiors. To his surprise, Klaus and Steven had been to this hospital before, 3 years ago, when the Great Collapse began, turning the whole of New York into ruins. Klaus found a baby girl who had lost her mother in the rubble. They had to find a nearby hospital to get her checked. The hospital was overwhelmed, and the director said they were doing their best, but it was a drop in the bucket. They didn't know when the terrifying collapse would end. The young doctor, Luciana, was so exhausted that she fell asleep standing. Klaus had immense respect for these angels in white. However, internal troubles remained unresolved, and new external threats emerged. A mysterious monster appeared outside the hospital. Klaus pulled out a mirror and discovered it was a vampire. He confronted the enemy, asking if vampires were responsible for New York's collapse. Surprisingly, the answer was no. The other world exists alongside Earth, overlapping periodically in a way no one can prevent. Without further ado, Klaus launched his brain grid blood battle style, and Steven activated Esmeralda blood freeze. However, the vampire hardly regarded them. A monster dog distracted them, rushing at Klaus as the vampire struck swiftly. Klaus managed to block this lethal blow. Their attacks troubled the vampire but didn't stop it, especially since Leo wasn't there. They faced an elder vampire beyond their ability to handle. Despite possessing an indestructible shield and Steven's formidable blood freeze, their attack speed couldn't match the vampire's healing abilities. The monster dog had already stormed the hospital, threatening hidden humans with imminent danger. Klaus couldn't watch them die, so he sent Steven to rescue them. He promised to survive 100 seconds, within which Steven had to eliminate the monster dog and come to his aid. A race against time began. The vampire unleashed a barrage of attacks, and Klaus resisted fiercely. The toughest 100 seconds imaginable. But victory wasn't as they hoped. A huge building fell from the sky, threatening to crush Steven and Klaus. Time froze at that moment as powerful mages from the Magical Association arrived. They cast a barrier that ended the Great Collapse, and Klaus and Steven fell into a coma. When they awoke, a new New York emerged where humans and monsters coexisted peacefully. But the hospital had vanished, only to reappear 3 years later. A car accident jolted several people out of their memories. Numerous rescuers rushed out of the hospital and organized a rescue operation at the scene. The long-absent hospital director also appeared. The group entered the hospital where Zap, previously near death, now seemed unharmed. Klaus recognized the doctor treating Zap, but the doctor turned and ran. Klaus grabbed him, and the doctor split into 2 people. As if expecting Klaus's surprise, a creature resembling a cane from another world appeared. The girl's transformation traced back to the Great Collapse 3 years earlier, which harmed not only humans but also left devastation in another world. A mage from another world named Magura, searching for survivors between the 2 worlds, stumbled upon the hospital where everyone's fate was unknown, except for Luciana, who was barely alive. The kind-hearted Magura gave Luciana the ability to duplicate herself. The girl lived up to expectations, continuously healing patients with her abilities. The group then ventured deeper into the hospital, finding hundreds of mummies, humans injured by the monster dog years ago, not dead, but used as nourishment for the monster dog, which had evolved into a humanoid form. It came to the hospital intending to massacre, but the seemingly frail Luciana erupted in power. Countless duplicates appeared and dismembered the monster dog. After recombining, Luciana transformed into a formidable woman. However, dealing with the beast required confronting its master. The vampire from 3 years ago reappeared and attacked Luciana directly. A red light flashed, and a man appeared, blocking the deadly strike. 3 years later, Klaus's strength had notably improved. Although he couldn't defeat an elder vampire alone, he could now resist for 133 seconds, a significant improvement. This time, he wasn't fighting alone. Using the Eye of God to see through the vampire's DNA, he learned its full name. It was time to say goodbye. Amidst the elder's shocked gaze, Klaus began the execution. Another powerful vampire was eliminated. 3 years had passed, and everything seemed different yet somehow unchanged, except for Zap, who had suffered another crushing fracture. The huge Duke Markiev moved through the city, but in this city, everyone was used to such sights. Some even specifically visited New York to see this. Leo, not seeing the road, accidentally bumped into a visiting gang leader. The boss, in a good mood, decided to beat up Leo. In his moment of despair, Leo saw Chain on the roof, but Chain ignored him. Meanwhile, with no vampires or other worldly disturbances, Stephen planned a party to relax. The nanny was genuinely happy seeing her young charge so relaxed. It had been a long while. Leo ended up beaten, losing teeth, and the money he was going to send his sister was stolen. Sonic felt sorry for Leo and couldn't understand why he didn't use the Eye of God against those thugs. Only Leo knew how much he despised those eyes because of his sister's sacrifice. Friends gathered at Stephen's house, bringing carefully chosen gifts. Surprisingly, the usually agile Stephen tripped and fell. After the nanny left, laughter filled the room. Then all guests raised their arms and suddenly pointed bizarre-looking guns at Stephen. They were from a mysterious organization planning to kidnap him. As the deputy head of Libra, Stephen was not one to be easily subdued. He had suspected these guests from the start. Pretending to fall as he entered, Stephen injected his blood into several of them, turning all enemies into ice statues instantly. Although these individuals had spent nearly a year getting close to Stephen, the recent installation of a live gun had raised suspicions. Klaus, a stickler for justice, would not allow Stephen to take the law into his own hands. Stephen called his private forces to clean up the mess. The man had just entered a moment of enlightenment when a woman burst in, furiously yelling at Zap. She had lost her cat, which was like her lifeline, declaring she didn't want to live without it. A blonde woman nearby mocked Teresa, but Teresa was no ordinary person. She cast a spell that sealed and then exploded the mocker's chest, revealing that Teresa inherited the bloodline of a curse-wielding clan, making her a natural sorceress. She then cursed Zap's brother, threatening him with an explosion if the cat wasn't found within 13 hours. Meanwhile, Leo went to Patrick to borrow a weapon. Patrick proudly introduced a devastating gun, but Leo just took a baton and left. He went to a bar to retrieve his wallet, which contained his sister's living expenses. He was determined to get it back. However, without the Eye of God, Leo was easily knocked out with a punch and mocked with a stun baton. The pleased gang leader returned to the bar only to meet a short-haired beauty, thinking his luck was explosive. First money, then a romantic encounter, he thought New York was truly his lucky place. Chain drank the drink the man offered, to the gang leader's delight. The woman then proposed a drinking bet. The loser would do whatever the winner said. The boss immediately perked up at the challenge. As a first-timer in New York, the drinks mixed by an otherworldly bartender were 100 times stronger than the fiercest liquor known to humans. Normally a heavy drinker, he was nearly done after just 2 glasses. Meanwhile, the woman next to him was thoroughly enjoying herself. Facing the last drink, Black Boss couldn't even muster the strength to lift his glass. Chain exhaled a breath heavy with alcohol, which was the final straw. The man collapsed heavily. Chain disappeared from the bar with the man's and Leo's wallets. Leo was immensely frustrated by his unlucky day. Suddenly a figure appeared. It was Zap, even more unlucky. He had been searching for his cat for 12 hours and hadn't found it. In 1 more hour, Teresa's curse would activate, and he would lose his brother. But Leo, unfamiliar with the situation, was powerless to help. He could only take Zap to plead with Teresa. In the completely sealed-off general's mansion, a pair of glasses suddenly shattered, prompting the general to flee in panic. Unexpectedly, several women appeared out of nowhere and opened fire fiercely on him, led by Chain. These women were members of the intelligence department of Libra, known as the Werewolf Bureau. The deputy director was particularly frustrated with these women. Despite firing 93 bullets, not one hit the general. These women were focused on gathering intelligence and had no interest in assassination, even supported by their easygoing director. After a busy day, the werewolves each went their own way, but a new member caught up with Chain to ask how to find their own butterfly. Werewolves possess invisible abilities, allowing them to alter the rules of the world on a small scale and make themselves disappear. However, these abilities are limited, and overuse can lead to permanent disappearance. The butterfly is the only way to prevent this dispersal. Each werewolf's butterfly is different, but represents what they cherish most. Chain stated that finding one's butterfly can only be achieved individually. Stephen called to inquire about Chain's mission, confirming that the general's vampire soldier plan had been thwarted. Satisfied, he told Chain to rest well. After the call, a rare blush appeared on Chain's face. Returning home for what he thought would be a rest, he didn't expect the relentless general to have found allies to confront the Werewolf Bureau and to have restarted the vampire soldier plan. All members of the Werewolf Bureau assembled, ready to head directly to the general's military base to destroy their facilities and plan documents. As if aware of a leak, the general launched a missile to New York, loaded with a vampire virus. With their invisible abilities, the werewolves easily infiltrated the base. Neither the steel-reinforced concrete that could withstand nuclear weapons, nor the lasers that could penetrate anything, could stop the women. Soon, important facilities at the base were alarming, causing the general great anxiety. Claus was also nervous. He received intelligence that a Werewolf Bureau defector named Beirut had just made a deal with the King of Hypersensitivity, one of the 13 rulers of another realm, who possesses the strongest sensory abilities. If Beirut acquired his powers, she could pose a threat to the invisible werewolves. A sinister hand reached into a woman's chest, tightly gripping her heart. This monster, capable of capturing invisible werewolves, was the Werewolf Bureau defector, Beirut. Although werewolves can make themselves intangible, dividing endlessly does not equate to zero. Beirut made a deal with the King of Hypersensitivity to gain infinitely amplified sensory capabilities, perfectly countering the werewolves. Chain had once reported Beirut for stealing funds, leading to her being wanted. Now, forsaking her beauty for revenge, Beirut captured 4 core members of the Werewolf Bureau. All that was left was to capture Chain and destroy her. Despite her powerful senses, Beirut still couldn't detect Chain, indicating how extensively she had diluted her own presence. Beirut exerted her senses to their limits but still couldn't find Chain. Frustrated and enraged, she unleashed her sensory powers fully. Sounds that no one else could hear thundered in Beirut's mind, marking the ultimate showdown between absolute dilution and absolute perception. However, the result was overwhelmingly in Chain's favor. Pushed to madness, Beirut forced Chain to keep diluting her presence, approaching near non-existence. Just when Chain was on the brink of disappearing completely, Beirut finally spotted her but only grabbed a pistol. In a moment of carelessness, Beirut accidentally shot herself. As she fell, the remaining werewolves rushed the launcher and halted the missile launch. The general's evil plan was thwarted, and the world was once again saved by Libra. Due to excessive dilution, Chain completely disappeared from this world. The Werewolf Bureau urgently activated an emergency plan, unlocking the long-sealed butterfly. Stephen, carrying Chain's butterfly, went to Chain's residence. Arriving at Chain's door, guided by a bunch of fools behind him, Stephen suddenly opened the door to find Chain, holding garbage and looking terrified, clearly not wanting Stephen to see her messy room. Finally, Chain exploded. New York City is very dangerous. Simply chatting with friends can result in being shattered into fractures by monsters. Although there's no risk to life, people frequently suffer fractures, making it impossible to work as a butler. The head maid of the Reinhardt's family called the old butler, telling him to take a break. She would send a young butler to replace him. Everyone was curious about this newcomer, but they had to make do. Chane and Steven secretly observed Claus, seeing him drink tea made by someone else for the first time. Meanwhile, Zap caused trouble and sought help, only to be stopped by Chane to prevent disturbing the boss. The new butler, Philip, rushed over and skillfully bandaged Zap. With Philip on board, the old butler could finally relax. This was also Leo's first chance to learn about this mysterious man. However, Philip was not content with just being a butler. His real dream was to become a Libra fighter like the old butler. The old butler did not think Philip was up to the task. Once exposed to Libra's secrets, Philip's brain would become worth billions, making him a target for many. His human abilities were not enough to cope. Feeling dismissed, Philip went to drink alone, not realizing the butler's warning would soon come true. Philip walked into an enemy trap, ready to have his brain removed. Soon after, Philip returned to Libra headquarters and went to the computer at the Libra command center. Just then, the old butler appeared behind Philip and communicated with him by tapping on his body. Following the old butler's instructions, Philip lifted his left eyelid, revealing an empty eye socket. The old butler realized Philip's brain had been stolen, and the enemy planned to use Philip to extract Libra's secrets. The old butler countered by sending false information to the enemy via the computer, then took advantage of the enemy's overconfidence to knock Philip out. He asked Leo to use the Eye of God to locate Philip's brain. Once all clues were clear, the old butler stopped Claus, who was preparing for a rescue. Regardless, he still wanted to give the young butler a chance. If the master had to rescue him, it might completely diminish the young man's passion for the butler profession. The old butler decided to handle the rest himself. Using Leo's Eye of God, the old butler established contact with the enemies and warned them to surrender quickly or face death, but the monsters didn't care. As the car approached the enemy's stronghold, the old butler activated the car's combat mode. The enemy was fully armed and waiting. The armored vehicle broke through the gates, and the auxiliary aiming system was activated, instantly locking onto all enemies. After a wild burst of gunfire, the vehicle sliced through the enemies like a meat grinder. Leo located Philip's brain, but it was snatched away by a mysterious enemy. After clearing the minor foes with a cannon, the old butler pursued the mysterious figure, who was not easily provoked, and launched several missiles at the old butler. Calmly, the old butler hit the eject button, and the car soared into the air, transforming into an aircraft and releasing flares, causing all missiles to lose their targets. Seeing this, the mysterious enemy drew dual blades and knocked down containers to block the pursuit. The old butler then activated the vehicle's ultimate form. As the butler closed in, the mysterious enemy descended from above and unleashed a devastating strike, seemingly cutting the old butler in half. It appeared the battle was decided, but unexpectedly, fresh flesh grew from the old butler's body. With the launch of a mortar, the mysterious person turned into ash smoke. Philip's brain was returned to Zap's hands. After the ordeal, Philip finally understood the dangers of joining Libra and regretted his previous actions. However, the old butler felt he was qualified to join Libra. The legendary all-seeing eyes of the gods. Can they be removed through medical means? Leo doesn't know. However, having Zap as a disastrous friend is truly awful. Despite being surrounded by formidable enemies underground, Zap kicked Leo out to serve as a human bomb. Leo woke up in the Fantasy Realm hospital, with Dr. Luciana appearing to help him recall his memories prior to the concussion, which frustrated him greatly. Nevertheless, since he was already there, Leo decided to ask the doctor if there was a way to treat his sister's leg. Dr. Luciana searched for a long time using her clones, but found no solution. If his sister's leg was this troublesome, his own eyes were even more hopeless. To Luciana's excitement, seeing the Eye of God invigorated her, as it was the first time she saw such a divine object. Legends say that blindness always affects someone close to the bearer of the Eye of God, a point confirmed by Megura's appearance. Moreover, removing the Eye of God is not a medical procedure, but a violation of a divine covenant. If even Megura said so, Was there really no hope for his sister's recovery? In his sister's eyes, Leo was a hero, yet the Turtle Knight disappointed the princess time and again. Back at Libra headquarters, Leo met that magnificent man again and remembered what Claus had said during their first meeting. Just as Leo was gathering hope again, only to be kicked away by Zap. Steven's warm smile terrified the two of them. Legend has it that the more Steven is pushed to his limits, the more amiable he becomes. Steven hasn't slept in a week. There are enemies preparing to summon a catastrophic disaster to destroy New York through a teleportation array created with network codes. Since the old butler had returned to attend his niece's wedding, the task of code defense fell on Steven. After completing the final code, Steven officially began tracking the enemy. Just then, Dr. Worm started causing trouble in the city. This enemy, capable of infinite cellular regeneration, was a formidable foe. Claus immediately called all Libra members to action, leaving only Anila to guard the empty room. Attracted by a strange sound, Anila went to investigate. The colossal disaster god shrouded the entire city. If its hand touched the ground, the city would turn to ruins. In such a critical moment, the members of Libra could only stay on the rooftop. The mysterious enemy had occupied Libra's headquarters and activated the defense system. Zap and Leo's attempt to infiltrate through the sewer was unsuccessful, and Chain's attempt to enter from the air also failed as the building's defenses were further enhanced. After the activation of the Level 5 defense system, the building was completely isolated from the outside world. Chain narrowly escaped being detected. Before the impact, Chain saw that the rooms in the headquarters were filled with mosquitoes. The locksmith said it would take 3 hours to unlock. However, the disaster god would not wait for them. KK, not seen for a long time, was ready to forcefully crack the headquarters defense system. Steven was furious. The summoning tracker he had spent a week creating couldn't be destroyed by KK with a single shot. At that moment, the mysterious monster occupying the headquarters called, claiming to be the newly born insect god needing to use Libra's headquarters to protect itself during its final step to divinity. Claus naturally refused, but the mosquito monster would not back down and activated the ultimate defense mode of the headquarters. Steven was incredibly frustrated. Claus comforted Steven while asking Leo if he could share his vision with him, using the Eye of God in combination with a mini crossbow to dodge the light net and avoid triggering the defenses. Claus could only continuously release blood without being able to recover it. Despite his decreasing blood levels, Klaus's steps did not slow down. The word give up was never in this man's dictionary. KK began the attack as planned. The mosquito monster was slow to react. By the time it did, Claus, carrying Leo, was already in front of it. Without the Eye of God, the monster couldn't see the light net and directed its mosquito army towards Claus. The contact between the mosquitoes and the light net caused a violent explosion. The locksmith took the opportunity to open a gap. The rest was up to Claus. In a corner of the city, a group of people were cheering for having summoned the disaster god. They excitedly counted down, but a shadow unlocked the door. Finally, everything settled down. That day, Chain congratulated Leo, who was responsible for organizing Libra's annual meeting. Leo lived up to expectations by securing a venue at the 8-star Sky Pavilion Bar. At this gathering, Leo planned to formally introduce Zed, the new member of Libra. Zed was touched by this thoughtful arrangement. He wanted to thank Leo personally, but overheard a conversation about the high cost of the Sky Pavilion. Due to its expense, an additional fee had to be collected from everyone, which Zap, being less affluent, refused. This even brought up the issue of Zed, who seldom went on missions, possibly paying more. Zed understood he was different from other Libra members. Although he was a fishman and couldn't move freely, he didn't want to reap benefits without contributing. Thus, he resolved to find a job. However, without work experience or a visa, Zed faced repeated rejections. Heartbroken, Zed got drunk at the bar. On his way home, he brushed past arms dealer Mira, who mistook his oxygen bag for a high-end sound system she wanted. She immediately sent her men to steal Jack's respirator. Drunk and defenseless, Zed was overpowered and his respirator was taken. Zed, without his respirator, collapsed. At that moment, 3 people who came to apologize found the unconscious Zed and took him back, placing him in a water tank. Leo saw the flyer he gave to Zed for the annual meeting on the tank and realized how much Zed valued the event and cherished his friends at Libra. Determined to help, Leo decided to retrieve Zed's respirator, ensuring he could attend the meeting. With the Eye of God activated, the evil plunderers couldn't hide from Leo's sight. As everyone was preparing to help Zed retrieve his respirator, a riot broke out in the city. Claus led a team to handle it, leaving the task of retrieving the respirator to the unreliable Zap. It's hard to imagine anyone driving Zap as crazy as a woman, yet it's not exactly a person. Zed, a monster born from the evil Count's mermaid hybrid experiments, shouldn't exist in this world. From birth, he could only hide in a bathtub, enduring loneliness, until he met his master, Blood Battle God. He thought Zed had no reason to live, but sensing the child's pure heart, Blood Battle, God gave him a choice, to die or to live in solitude as an outcast. The merciful God allowed Zed to step out of the jar and see the beauty of the world for the first time. And now, Zed truly felt the sincerity of friends for the first time. To help Zed recover his respirator, Chain and Leo arrived at Mira's company. They planned to strategize before acting, but Zap, dropping from the sky, strutted into the building. The guards prepared to teach this arrogant fool a lesson, unaware they were facing the war god Zap. Alone, Zap held off all the guards while Chain sneaked in to retrieve the respirator. Mira was furious at Chain's intrusion, directing the defense system at him. Chain activated invisibility, teleported behind Mira, and seized her heart. Even though Mira was a wealthy businesswoman, she was nothing more than an ant in front of Libra, unless she was a god. They successfully retrieved the respirator, exhausted to the brink of death. Just then, a heavy mech burst out of the building. The drained trio had no strength left to fight, but at that critical moment, a red light flashed, followed by a blinding glare, and the mech shattered into pieces, all done by Zed without his respirator. This was the first spell Blood Battle God taught Zed, which changed his life. Of course, he couldn't escape the teasing from his mischievous friends. Thus, the largest annual and welcome party in Libra's history was successfully held. Zed also found a job distributing flyers using his abilities. With his adorable friends at Libra, even though he chose to stay in this world, he would never have to endure loneliness again. Having a wallet cleaner than your face and still getting robbed is simply outrageous. However, Luba doesn't care about your situation. No money means a beating. Leo had faced tough opponents like Luba before, but never a cowardly friend like Mile. None in the big family of Libra were like him. Mile ran away, leaving Leo to take the beating alone. Leo felt incredibly unlucky. Just then, a mechanical sphere rolled next to Leo, began scanning him, and informed him that it had caused him no harm. The sphere introduced itself as a mechanical doctor. Using his Eye of God, Leo saw that it was merely a flea, not a doctor. Meanwhile, Leo took Gato home, only to find out Gato was not a flea, but a bacterium, from a world of bacteria that had produced a terrorist pathogen named Kaimi. The object that had hit Leo was the only weapon that could combat Kaimi, but now it was broken. On the other side, Kaimi had set its sights on Leo's friend Mile. Although naturally timid, Mile was very kind and felt immense guilt for abandoning Leo. He wished for the power to protect those he cherished. Just then, a monster appeared before him, seemingly aware of Mile's desire, offering him limitless power. As Mile hesitated to sell his soul, 2 thugs approached him demanding money, backed by Luba, the same boss who had beaten Leo. At that moment, Mile hesitated no longer. His body began to inflate like a balloon, enjoying the surge of strength. It was time to deal with all the scoundrels. The arriving police did not stop Mile from taking action. On the other side, after relentless efforts, Gato repaired the ultimate weapon. Now, It was time for him and Leo to save the world with their own strength. What is the purpose of the Eye of God? It's for helping the landlord find his cat. Finding the cat could even save a month's rent. Leo and Sonic shared their vision, navigating through the maze-like city, and quickly found the cat and returned it to the landlord. However, while Leo was doing good deeds with the Eye of God, Miles' body was still growing. The police seemed like moving punching bags in front of him. One cop Miles knocked away flew towards a moving car, which happened to carry Ham, Claus, and the prison warden. Claus, sensing a bad omen, managed to stop the car with his powers and avoided a falling cop. Before they could react, another cop fell towards two innocent children. Ham used his powers to stop the cop. Seeing Miles from a distance, Claus realized the crisis and quickly called Steven to declare an emergency. At that time, Steven was with Leo and Gatto. Gatto confirmed that Miles' condition was due to the terrorist pathogen, which, by attaching spells to the existing bacteria, caused them to multiply infinitely. This not only enhanced the host, but also evolved according to the enemy's strength. However, it was already too late. Libra's forces rushed towards Miles, but Ham's attack failed to restrain him and instead made Miles even stronger, sending Ham flying. Claus, learning the enemy's traits from Leo, realized that their primary goal had to be capture. Although he thought his spells could easily trap Miles only grew larger. Then, like shedding skin, he emerged from his massive shell and attacked Claus. Ham arrived in time to knock Miles back to the ground. When Miles reappeared, he was nearly as tall as Ultraman. A gigantic monster rampaged through the city, easily destroying buildings with a mere touch. Yet during such a perilous moment, people cheered for him from afar. Then Baron Markieff, the king of New York, appeared, seemingly intending to defend his territory. The confrontation between the two ultimate monsters was imminent. With the Baron's support, humanity's most advanced missiles targeted Miles, but this only caused Miles to evolve again. After absorbing a round of attacks, Miles grew even larger than the Baron. As they faced off, the Baron turned and fled. Miles advanced step by step, but he was just an empty shell. The kind and timid Miles was trapped in a hidden space within the giant's body, unaware of what was happening. The real controller was the terrorist pathogen, Kaimi, which tempted Miles to surrender his body completely for transformation into a being beyond gods. However, Miles steadfastly refused. Awakening, Miles longed for his past life, sunbathing on the grass with his good friend Leo, whom he greatly admired. He had always strived to protect his friends, no matter how strong the opponent. Now, possessing great power, he could no longer see his best friend. Miles began to cry, hoping for Leo's help. Saving the world doesn't always require a superhero. Sometimes it could be a monkey. Today, Libra's monsters encountered a real monster. The deadliest attacks from the strongest, two barely tickled Miles' feet. Miles saw the efforts of Libra's warriors to protect the city, truly friends of Leo, who never back down no matter how strong the enemy. Meanwhile, Leo, aboard a flying vehicle, approached Miles. He dropped Sonic into Miles' body and used the Eye of God to tap into the visual signals for command. Sonic searched the giant shell for Miles and Kaimi. Miles struggled to stop Kaimi's destruction, but Kaimi was ready to forcefully invade Miles' motor neurons and destroy everything. Enduring immense pain, Miles fought desperately to prevent harm to the innocent. Leo's Eye of God was pushed to its limits, yet he persevered, unwilling to see his friend die. Neither gave up, and with everyone's hopes riding on him, Sonic raced against time. At the crucial moment, Sonic arrived and used a weapon specially made by Gatto to end Kaimi. Electricity quickly spread through Miles' neural network, and the giant body eventually shrank, falling into an endless abyss. Sonic escaped at the last moment, becoming a little hero who saved the world. Leaving the bustling headquarters, Leo fell into sadness again, wondering if Miles was being bullied in another world. At that moment, Leo even felt Miles calling out to him. This mom is incredible. She wiped out an armored unit in the time it took to use the restroom, then returned to class as if nothing happened to hold a parent-teacher meeting. KK had no choice, having promised her child she'd attend the school's observation day, but then Steven had to play the victim right in front of her.
まあ結果何人かが命を落とすかもしれないが。
The kind-hearted KK chose to take on the mission. Kane, knowing his mom couldn't make it, called her a liar. KK, a strong woman, felt helpless with her child. Not wanting to lose her children's trust, KK bought a remote-operated sniper system from Patrick. This allowed her to manage both family and work, enabling her to participate in the observation day and complete her mission. On the day, KK used the sniper system to cover her team, but then her teammates were blocked by mechanical beasts. KK, thinking she was done, had to remotely rescue them from the restroom using a portable drone, quickly eliminating the enemy. KK breathed a sigh of relief. Waiting for KK to return, only one man was left in the classroom, telling her the kids had moved to another class. The two, both busy with work but attending the observation day, enjoyed a good chat. Kane, thinking his mom had left, was happy to see KK return but still teased her. KK, far from angry, instead asked about her son's gossip with a female classmate. At that moment, her teammates' calls for help came once again. No one knew how angry KK was. Her hands trembled as she held the controller in the restroom. She showed no mercy to the enemies and quickly neutralized them, nearly hitting a teammate by mistake. The problem was finally resolved. She hoped there would be no more issues this time. What kind of terrifying war machine can catch a missile with one hand? Steven was leading an attack on an evil organization. Everything was going smoothly until the end, when a vampire suddenly appeared and halted their progress. KK, who should have been at the mission site, was instead attending her son's school observation day and could only coordinate with her teammates remotely. The appearance of the vampire worried her, and she felt she had no choice but to leave her son to go and help. As KK was about to leave, she passed by a classmate's father and sensed something unusual. She realized she had been in the presence of a vampire all along without noticing. This oversight shocked KK into a cold sweat. Meanwhile, Steven attacked the blocking vampire. Without Claus and Leo, Steven was clearly struggling. He was quickly overwhelmed and severely wounded. The enemy, seizing the opportunity before the other members could arrive, intended to finish Steven off. Steven was retreating under heavy pressure, but just as the enemy was about to deliver a fatal blow, its movement suddenly froze, allowing Steven to kill his attacker. It turned out the vampire Steven faced was controlled by Kane's classmate's father, whom KK now had in her sights. Although a vampire, this father, like KK, could not refuse his daughter's request. That's why he was remotely controlling a robot while attending his daughter's school event. A battle between the two was imminent, but it was interrupted by the girl's cry of "Daddy," giving Steven a chance to counterattack. Faced with his beloved daughter, the vampire had to admit defeat. He didn't lose to KK or Steven, but to his role as a father. What does it feel like to suddenly find out your beloved sister is getting married? Just look at Leo's reaction. Leo was initially happy after a call with Black, who advised him to keep in touch with his sister more. But then he was hit hard. His beloved sister was getting married. Who could handle that news lightly? She informed Leo that she and her boyfriend would be visiting him in 3 days. After hanging up, worried about his sister's safety, Leo sought help from the members of Libra. As expected, nearly everyone turned up, officially to help, but really to see what Leo's sister looked like. Seeing his lively sister, Leo breathed a sigh of relief. The siblings, who hadn't seen each other for a long time, embraced tightly. Then Michelle introduced her fiancé Toby to her brother. The atmosphere among the three was very harmonious. With the Libra members around to ensure everything went smoothly, the whole meeting was peaceful and harmonious. But in the hotel corridor, Leo heard unusual footsteps. A mysterious creature appeared behind his sister, invisible to the other members of Libra. To uncover the truth, Leo excused himself to the restroom, and sure enough, the creature followed him. The creature introduced itself as Dr. Gamimots, also a bearer of the Eye of God, like Leo. It was possessing Toby to collect the world's prosthetic limbs of the gods. Dr. Gamimots considered it a great honor for Leo to have been given the Eye of God, unaware that it was Leo's greatest burden. To demonstrate the power of the Eye of God, the doctor decapitated a passerby, who then appeared unharmed as if nothing had happened. This was the ability of Gamimot's Eye of God, to control what everyone present could see, explaining why no one but Leo could see him. Gamimot demanded Leo's eye. Faced with this unprecedented adversary, Leo was at a loss. He knew he was no match for Gamimot, and Zap, who arrived later, did not realize Leo's peril and inadvertently revealed Leo's association with Libra, increasing Gamimot's interest in the capabilities of Leo's eye. When the Eye of God met another Eye of God, Leo finally understood the origin of everything. The so-called god from another realm that took his sister's eyes was merely an ophthalmologist serving a higher deity. It was all a divine amusement. Throughout human history, whenever significant changes occurred, the Eye of God was present. Everything was recorded and preserved through the art of the chosen ones, possessing the Eye of God. Leo knew that his observant sister Michelle must have noticed Gamimot's presence, which is why she came to him, the only person she could rely on. Nonetheless, the Turtle Knight would never give up. Just then, Steven called. An unidentified vampire appeared downtown, forcing Leo to leave temporarily. Gamimot used monitors to keep an eye on Leo. The police were as ineffective as usual, unable to resist the vampire. Claus arrived with reinforcements. The vampire sprouted many tentacles from its back. Although not of the elder class, it was not easily dealt with. The tentacles overwhelmed the police's armored units. KK's bullets hit the monster precisely, but caused no substantial damage. Steven froze the vampire, but it quickly broke free, and even shed its skin, attempting to escape in an egg form. KK's bullets blocked the vampire's movement. The combined forces of the wind and fire gods chopped up the vampire, and then trapped it in a blood-fighting ritual. Everyone was waiting for Leo to read the vampire's name, but they didn't know that Leo was being monitored by Gamimot. Revealing the name would expose the power of his own eyes. As the vampire nearly escaped, Leo chose to sacrifice himself to help his friends at Libra. Receiving a message from Leo, Claus read out the vampire's name and then activated the brain grid blood battle style, successfully sealing the vampire. Gamimot gained a new understanding of the functions of the Eye of God. The usually unflappable Claus was furious, leaving Steven utterly shocked. Indeed, the person who could make Claus so anxious was now facing the biggest crisis of his life, as his sister was in Gamimot's hands. Leo, cautious not to make a wrong move, was forced by the cunning Gamimot to discard his phone, preventing him from informing Claus of his predicament. With his phone gone, Leo had no way out. Suddenly Sonic ran past Leo, and Gamimot showed no reaction. Leo sensed a key opportunity and decided to test further by quickening his pace into the fog, activating his Eye of God. As expected, Gamimot remained unaware, confirming to Leo that this surveillance puppet did not possess the traits of the Eye of God. The rest became manageable. Leo led Gamimot into an alley, drawing the attention of some thugs. He used the Eye of God to blur their vision and made a rapid escape. During this brief moment of freedom, Leo managed to send a distress message to Claus, who then realized the extent of Leo's trouble. Back at the hotel, Leo entered a virtual world very familiar to him, a favorite place of his sister's. Only her most loved ones would come here with her. Previously Leo, and later her lover Toby, but certainly not the vile figure now before him. Furious, Leo charged at Gamimot. Even in his sister's favorite scenery, he would not allow it to be defiled by anyone. This was not a mindless assault. Leo had his own plan. To Gamimot, Leo was merely a weakling with a combat strength of 5, not a real threat. The true danger, he assumed, would come from other members of Libra. Unexpectedly, the entire Libra team was converging on the hotel. With Leo lacking even a cell phone, how did he manage to communicate the situation? It seemed the only option was to complete the surgery quickly. Did you know that turtles, due to their physical structure, cannot move backward? This means the Turtle Knight does not represent cowardice and slowness, but rather the spirit of moving forward and perseverance. Leo exemplified the Knight's spirit through his actions. He fully activated the Eye of God, risking brain damage to gain an advantage, using the Eye of God to suppress another Eye of God, narrowly avoiding vital hits. Despite immense pain, as long as he stayed alive to buy time, waiting for his friends from Libra to come to his aid, he could protect his sister. At this moment, Michelle, who had been unconscious, woke up. Realizing Michelle was Leo's vulnerability, Gamimots took her hostage to force Leo to undergo the surgery. However, he underestimated the power of familial love. Michelle, mustering all her strength, lunged at Gamimots, hoping to buy time for her brother to escape. But why would Leo flee? He grabbed Gamimots and headbutted him fiercely, breaking Gamimots' prosthetic eye with his relentless headbutts, causing the artificial scenery created by Gamimots to vanish. This enraged Gamimots. Although Leo reactivated the Eye of God to dodge a fatal injury, he would not allow himself to retreat in front of his sister. Flashes of the past, including the vibrant and lovely girl, appeared before him. White had never left. She had always been by his side, guarding him. There were still important things to do and important people to protect. He could not die. The two most important people in his life told Leo that as long as one never stops pursuing the light, the human soul will never be defeated. Leo advanced despite the blade, striking Gamimots and injuring him. Gamimots couldn't understand how a human dared to fight against his body made of divine artifacts. At that last moment, a line of bright red blood pulled Leo back. That man had arrived, leading the world's strongest team. After the storm had passed, everyone was safe except for Leo, who was seriously injured and unconscious. Toby regained his freedom. Michelle thanked Claus for looking after her brother, and believed that her brother would become an excellent Libra warrior. When Leo woke from his injuries, he did not see his sister. Instead, Claus was by his side in the hospital. He remembered their first meeting when he felt he had failed to protect his sister. Now, he had become a qualified warrior. Finally, Leo understood his purpose: to protect. Life continued after the turmoil. After seeing off Michelle, unexpectedly, Black, who had traveled the world, returned. Everything seemed back to how it began, yet something felt missing. Yes, the unique chaos and disorder of New York remained. So, how could the king of depravity be absent? The familiar devouring beast, the familiar escapes, the familiar desperate situations, and of course, the familiar leader Claus were all still there.